Alright, hello once again. This is Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College, and I've been going through an iterative payroll application to try to teach you the Java programming language. And I'm up to Chapter 6 in our Gaddis book, Java with Early Objects, I believe it is, 6th edition. And so far I've gone in and I've started to create an object-oriented program, but now is where we'll call it the fun begins. So, we're going to create, I don't know. I'm looking at the example I did before, and I did 2 different constructors. Seems to make sense to me. In fact, I'll make 3 of them. So, we're going to do it like this. All right. So the first one that we create, this is going to be constructor number 1, and we're going to call this our no arg constructor. And I did explain that before, but not in very much depth or breadth of coverage. So we're going to look at that in just a second. Then we will have constructor number 2, which will be our names only constructor. And after that, we will have constructor number 3, which we'll call our all values passed in constructor. So what does that mean? First thing to realize, and we've talked about this earlier, but I want you to hear it again. And that is, a constructor is what is called when you create a new object. And guess what? We actually have an example right here. This is creating a new object of type decimal format that's called pattern 1. And we are calling it, and we are passing this in because that particular constructor is expecting an argument, so that's what we're passing. But when you have got a constructor, it's public, followed by the name of the class, and in this case, there's nothing after or inside of the parentheses. There are no arguments, hence the name no arg constructor. Now, hopefully, that just makes sense. So this is assuming that we create an object and we have absolutely nothing that we have passed in to that particular object. All right? Well, the first thing that I want to do in any of these is I'm creating a new object, right? So I want to add 1 to my employee count in here, and I want to do it in here, and I want to do it in here. So I'm going to put a comment in here that says initialize each payroll object field to a default value. All right. Now, it's going to be kind of a dumb value, but this is what I'm going to use anyway. All right. I'm also going to use the word this, which is a keyword in Java. So this dot, notice it realizes first name. So if I don't give it a first name, then I'm just going to initialize it to unknown FN. So unknown first name. We didn't pass 1 in. All right. Well, not only do we have a first name, but remember we also have a last name. So we'll call that unknown LN. All right. This dot hours worked. How many hours did they work? Well, we don't even know their names, so we don't know how many hours they may have worked. So we'll set that equal to 0.0, and this dot hourly rate will also set equal to 0.0. Now, the other thing I want to do in here, and we've just got one more line of code we have to put in, and that is increment the employee count accumulator. And remember, we've talked about this before, I could say emp count equal emp count plus 1, or I could say emp count plus equal 1, or I could say emp count plus plus, or let's just do this one, plus emp, whoops, plus emp count. Okay, that's it. So if we create a brand new payroll object, and if we do something, all right, no arc constructor. So I'm going to put it here, example. Payroll, Jeff equal new payroll, paren. So if that's the case, Jeff's first name will be set to unknown FN. Jeff's last name will be set to unknown LN. Hours worked will be set to 0.0. Hourly rate will be set to 0.0. Now that may not make a lot of sense right now to you. Ideally, at least, it'll make more sense as we go on. All right, so let me copy this. What do we have here? Yeah, we'll copy all that. That's fine. So this second constructor that we have right here, this is called a names only constructor. All right, so I'm going to put in here string FN string LN, because I'm passing in a first name and a last name. So this will become FN, this will become LN. So ideally, at least, let's see, can I bring all this up so I can, yeah, there's both of them. So this is my no arg constructor here, so I don't know anything. So I'm setting the first name to unknown FN, the last name to unknown LN, and I'm just defaulting the hours worked and the hourly rate to 0. Here, I am passing in a first name, and I am passing in a last name, so I'm going to set those accordingly. But since I am not, repeat, since I am not passing in an hours worked or an hourly rate, I'm just defaulting those. All right. All right, so that's my first two examples. So this would be if I said a new payroll and I said Jeff and Scott, but I didn't pass in anything for the hours worked or hourly rate. So here it's like we hire a new employee. Really, what's his or her name? Don't know. How many hours are they going to work? We don't know. What's their rate? We don't know. Here it's like we hired in a new employee. What's their first name? Jeff. What's their last name? Scott. How many hours are they going to work? Don't know. What's their hourly rate? Don't know. We still want to add 1 to our employee count. All right, so now let's look at the last one. And again, just because I don't want to spend all my time typing, and we're already at 10 minutes here almost, or 9 minutes. So now I've got string first name, string last name, double hours worked, double hourly rate. So now I do have values for all of these. So that's hours worked, and that's hourly rate. This is though I came in and said Jeff, and Jeff works 40 hours, and Jeff makes $25 an hour. Now, I do want to mention something, all right? Because like I said, I'm trying to be unbelievably deliberate with this. I'm doing my best, all right? Notice that I gave these different names, FN and LN, than the names that were here. If I had not done that, if I decided I wanted to actually use the same names here, oops, first name and, oops, first name and last name. First thing that's going to happen is when I get errors here. But then I have to use the word this. So what I'm telling you, hopefully you remember this, these are called right here, these are called actual parameters. So they're also actual parameters. All right. These right here, those are called formal parameters. And the formal parameters and the actual parameters can be the same name, but do not have to be. If I do make them the same name, then I must use the word this. If I make them different names, I can use the word this, but I don't have to. Oops. So that's legit. This would not be legit. I'd have to use the word this because otherwise it takes that and it makes a copy of it to itself. By putting the word this there, like I just did, that says the variable that I'm using, the variable here, the variable here, the one here, and the one here are indeed these variables. I'm leaving no doubt. So you've got two choices when you do this. Either you can pass in the exact name and use the this dot before it, or you can use a different name. So in other words, there, the formal parameter here is the same as the actual parameter. Here, the formal parameters are different than the actual parameters. You still can put in this dot, and many Java programmers always use the this dot. This is a keyword which currently means whatever you're currently talking about, for lack of better words. So I'm going to leave them both in there just so you can see examples of each one. Hopefully, I did that well enough that what I just did and what I just showed you made sense. So I am going to literally, we will do a payroll Jeff equal new payroll. In fact, I think I used Chloe for this. I did it in reverse. All right. For this one, I think and I'm not sure if this one I think we did I think we did Taylor. So that was Taylor Scott. All right. And this one I think I did make a Jeff, and I made it look like that. So what I've tried to get across to you right here are two things. First of all, when you create a new object, the system goes out and it looks for a constructor, which is the same name as the class. If you call it with no arguments, it looks for a no-arg constructor, which is what I have here. In this case, if you call it with two arguments, it looks for a two-argument constructor, which is what I have right here. And in this case, if I call it with four arguments, it looks for a four-arg constructor. All right? There is no limit to how many ways you can overload this, but each time what appears in the parentheses must be different between each one. So you can only have one no-arg constructor, for example. All right? Hopefully that made some sense. All right? Now, what I want to do, and I've never done this before, so I'm running blind right here. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say, can I automatically create getters and setters in IntelliJ IDEA. All right, generating getters and setters. All right, I could manually type these in, but why should I? All right, so I can go in on the main menu and choose Code Generate. All right, so I'm going to try that. You'll see a little magic, so to speak, right here. All right, so I'm going to come down to here, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to do, sorry, on the main menu, choose Code Generate. All right. Code Generate, and it says, what do you want? I want getters. And what do I want getters for? So I have to basically tell it now what I want getters for. I want a getter for first name. I want a getter for last name. I want a getter for hours worked. And I want a getter for hourly rate. So I click OK. And it wrote them for me. All right. Now there's not much in them, but I'm also going to go down and do a Code Generate. And this time I'm going to use setters, and I'm going to choose the same ones. First name, last name, hours worked, hourly rate, and click that. Boom. So a bunch of code was written for me, as a friend of mine, Doug, used to say, automagically. All right? So before I go in and explain all of those to you, which I'm going to do, all right, guaranteed, but I'm going to go down and I'm going to add some comments here. The time to always add your comments is when you're creating your code. The time to not add the comments is after you've created the code and then come back and say, oh, I'm going to do it later. You probably won't. All right, so I'm going to try. I'm trying here so that as I create things, I'm going to immediately keep commenting. All right. When I come back, because I'm already at 18 minutes here, when I come back, I'm going to explain what each one of these getters does and what each one of these setters does. I'm also going to go and do some rewrite on what's on there. All right, you'll see what I mean when I get there in just a couple minutes. So I'll be back with that very shortly.